Hello, I'm Collie Greenwood, General Manager and CEO at MARTA. Thank you for your interest in MARTA's NextGen Bus Network. This strategic redesign of our bus network will create a smarter, faster, and better system to serve the evolving needs of our customers. The new system will increase frequent service routes, enhance job accessibility, and create new on-demand service zones that meet the diverse needs of lower density areas. The NextGen Bus Network represents a generational shift in our service. This effort will better align our service with the region's dynamic growth, changing commute patterns, and post-pandemic realities of how people use public transit. It also reflects MARTA's long-term vision for a more equitable and efficient transit system, one that prioritizes access to jobs, education, essential services, and stronger community connections. So thank you. Thank you so much for taking time to participate today and learn more about MARTA's NextGen Bus Network.
Thanks for joining us to learn more about the NextGen Bus Network redesign. We're excited to share information about the project and the smarter, faster, and better bus network it can create. In this presentation, we'll cover the project background, get into the details of the draft network, look at the outcomes of the network and how it can change your level of access, and talk about next steps. Before we get into details about the network, let's start with the background on the project.
MARTA has been running buses since the early 1970s. We won't go over the entire history of the network, but it has changed gradually over the years. The network evolved with MARTA's rail system and reacted to different circumstances over the years, including the COVID-19 pandemic. But this project is different, and it's a big deal. Taking such a thorough look all at once, we expect that this project will be the largest and most comprehensive network plan since MARTA was founded. The project began in 2021 when we developed two different concepts of what the system could look like, one based on ridership and one based on coverage. We'll come back to this in just a minute. In 2022, we took these concepts to the public for feedback, asking for input about which one people preferred. We held public meetings, met with stakeholders, and collected over 8,000 pieces of input from surveys administered online and in person. In 2023, the MARTA board provided policy guidance to direct us on the kind of bus network we'd be designing, and we'll talk about that in just a minute too. In late 2023 and in 2024, we worked with a wide range of partners to design the draft network that we're sharing with you today. And now, we're bringing it to you for your feedback. Your voice is important, and we want to know what you think. Later in 2025, we'll refine the plan into a final draft, hold public hearings, and present it to the MARTA board for approval and begin preparing for launch. The MARTA board gave us 5 guiding principles to follow. The bus network we design should be future-facing, not just a reaction to things as they are today. It should expand access and increase ridership, which can lead to economic and environmental benefits. It should be equitable, enhancing access for disadvantaged groups and areas. And the network should strike an intentional balance between ridership and coverage goals. And we must keep in mind that there will be challenges. This bus network will produce major overall benefits, but some customers may object to the changes we are proposing. The draft network was designed with several other principles in mind. First, the amount of service is like the service level we operate today. It's jurisdictionally balanced, so each part of the service area has similar levels of service to what they have today. Clayton County's service remains essentially unchanged and will follow existing plans. We mentioned the balance between ridership and coverage goals. In a high ridership network, there is more frequent bus service in the places where people are most likely to use it. In a coverage network, there is geographic coverage to more places, but without much frequency on the routes. MARTA's bus network today is about 60% dedicated to ridership and 40% dedicated to coverage. In the proposed draft network, it takes a step towards a higher ridership system by shifting to 75% ridership and 25% coverage. Now, Let's look at the proposed draft NextGen Bus Network. Let's start with the big picture. The draft network will triple the number of residents with access to frequent service, which is bus service that runs at least every 15 minutes. This big increase in access to frequency provides improvements to minority and low-income communities and improves access to jobs, fresh food, education, healthcare, and more. We have designed several features into the bus network. First, there is more frequency. That's more service running every 15 minutes, but also more routes running every 20 and 30 minutes too. The draft network has a lot fewer hourly routes. Second, we designed many routes to be simpler, easier to understand, and to have fewer transfers. It provides access to more places in less time as a result. And we are planning several strategically located time transfer locations where buses can arrive and depart together, minimizing wait time. And the network is planned to operate more consistent frequencies with all routes and on-demand zones operating all week. And the new network will feature a new kind of service, on-demand. With on-demand service, customers in 12 zones will be able to use an app or a phone call to hail a MARTA vehicle. On-demand service is great travel around the neighborhood, but it will also provide connections to frequent service like 15-minute bus routes, rail service, or transfer points. Here you can see the two networks side by side. The first difference you might notice is the colors. There's a lot more red lines on the draft network map, which represents bus service running every 15 minutes or better. On these maps and through the rest of the presentation, you will see these colors to represent bus frequency. Red is every 15 minutes or better, purple every 20 minutes, dark blue every 30 minutes, light blue every 40 to 45 minutes, and green is every hour. You will see lighter colors in the existing map to represent limited service, routes that only run during rush hours or only at select times. And in the draft network, you will see tan areas for the on-demand zones. The existing bus network has 113 fixed bus routes. It has frequent service in 5 corridors and 20-minute service on 9 routes. 5 of the network's routes only run during rush hours, and there is no on-demand service. The entire system is traditional bus service. The NextGen draft network has 79 routes, which is fewer routes than the current system. But it has frequent service in 18 corridors, up from 5 today. 20-minute service is offered on 13 more routes, and the network includes 12 on-demand zones. All fixed bus routes and on-demand zones operate every day and with more consistent frequencies. Unlike today's system, there will be no routes that only operate during rush hour.
Now, let's talk about the outcomes. MARTA studied the draft network to get an understanding of what it could do for people and how residents of our service area could benefit from it. We'll cover some key topics here. One of the first things we looked at was simply how many people live near transit service, and we found that the draft network would serve 623,100 people, an increase of 12,500 people over the system today. By near, we mean people living within 1/4 mile of a transit stop. The draft network would provide over 3 times as many people with access to frequent service that runs every 15 minutes or more often, an increase of 95,100 people. And 143,200 more people would be near service that runs every 30 minutes, a significant increase over today's system. Minority communities see positive outcomes too. 64,700 more minority residents would have access to frequent service, a 232% increase. And nearly 88,000 more minority residents would be within 1/4 miles of service running every 30 minutes or better, a big increase over today's network. Low-income people would have increased access too. 26,400 more low-income people would be near frequent service. and over 32,000 more people would be near service running at least every 30 minutes, a consistent gain compared to the network today. We also looked at how many jobs would be near the draft network and found that it would serve 93% of the jobs our existing network serves today. But the draft network would provide another 103,300 jobs with frequent service, more than twice the system today. And 144,800 more jobs would have service running every 30 minutes or better. We looked at where access to jobs changed too. Let's start with the map, where you can see green and tan dots. Each dot represents 50 people in the area where they live, and they're color-coded. In the green dots, those 50 people can reach more jobs within 1 hour's travel time on transit during the midday hours. If the dot is tan, those 50 people can reach fewer jobs within an hour. And the shading is important. The darker the color, the greater the change. For example, dark green dots indicate that people could reach over 80,000 more jobs. Where you see tan dots, while those areas have less access in the draft network than they do today, it's important to note that in many places you can still get there. It would just require a longer walk or a longer ride. Looking at the green areas across the map, you can see that most areas see increases in jobs reachable in 60 minutes under the draft network. The average resident would be able to reach 22,000 more jobs in an hour, and even more if people are willing to ride a bit longer. We looked at how these job access changes break down across different population groups too. Minority residents, on average, would be able to reach 19,800 more jobs in an hour. Low-income people would be able to reach 25,300 more jobs, and households without a personal vehicle would be able to reach 34,200 more jobs compared to the bus system today. While jobs are an important reason to ride transit, we want the network to function for all kinds of trips. So we looked at how it would improve access to other types of places and found that people could reach 22% more college and university campuses. They could reach 27% more hospitals, and a really important one, 26% more grocery stores within an hour's travel time. You can see the green here on the map, plus the purple dots representing grocery stores, a widespread improvement and one that can connect people to fresh food faster in areas that simply don't have as many grocery options as others. Next, we'll look at some examples of how your access can increase with the draft network. In these maps, you can see how access changes under the draft network. Purple areas indicate places you can travel in an hour today at noon and where you'll still be able to travel in the draft network. But that extra blue area shows how much farther you'll be able to go in an hour under the draft network. This represents new access. You'll also see some red areas in some places where you can get there in an hour today, but not under the draft network. Again, you can still get there in many cases, but it may take longer or require more walking. At the right, the table summarizes how access changes by the numbers. You can see that from Emory, shown here, the draft network would provide access to 258,200 more jobs in an hour, and 238,000 more people would be within an hour's travel from Emory University. You can see on the map that from Emory, you'll be able to go much farther into South DeKalb County, farther towards Buckhead, and how all of the routes in the network will work together to take you farther into downtown and midtown Atlanta, West Atlanta, and to rail stations farther out than you can reach under an hour today. From Greenbrier Mall in southwest Atlanta, you'd be able to reach nearly 15,000 more jobs and 35,000 more people. You'd be able to go farther towards the Hamilton E. Holmes rail station, further into College Park and East Point, and all the way out along Cleveland Avenue. We've shown you two examples, but you can explore the network on your own. Visit the project website at MARTANextGenBusNetwork.com to see our interactive maps. With the swipe comparison tool, you can easily zoom in and compare the existing and proposed networks. And with the interactive access viewer, you can make access maps like the ones we just looked at on your own. You can click anywhere in the system to see how the access areas change and to get the numbers behind them too.
Before we end our presentation, let's talk a bit about the road ahead. We are in the public engagement phase now, and we would like to thank you for your interest and your time. We really want to know what you think of the draft network, so please stay in touch using the methods we will share in a moment. At the end of our engagement phase, we will take all the feedback and opinion we hear to refine the draft network. Once it's refined to a final draft, we will take it to the MARTA board for approval, and if the board approves, we will begin preparations to launch the new network. while we will have a lot to do behind the scenes to prepare, we will also conduct a major education effort to make sure that riders and neighbors of our system know what changes are coming. We're targeting late 2025 for a launch, and after the new network begins operation, we will begin monitoring and evaluating to see what adjustments might be needed. In the coming months, we will be hosting a variety of engagement activities, including open houses and in-person meetings at several locations across the MARTA service area. We will also offer virtual options, such as online meetings and lunch and learns. For details on dates, times, and locations where you can share your thoughts on the draft plan, please visit our website at MARTA NextGenBusNetwork.com. You can stay up to date and learn a lot more on our project website. Again, it's MARTA-NextGenBusNetwork.com. You can read the full detailed draft network report, view maps of the system, including close-up maps by area, see profiles of each route, and explore the network with our interactive maps. We encourage you to tell us what you think using the online survey and comment card, and to stay up to date by signing up to receive project updates.
We hope you've learned more about the NextGen Bus Network redesign and that you take time to explore it on your own. And please let us know what you think. Your feedback is critical to moving this project forward. Thank you for your interest and time, and we hope to see you soon.